Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about chapters 3 and 4. I don't know about you guys, but I freaking loved chapter 4. I was so excited about this chapter. So we're still going to talk about chapter 3, but I was really excited about the content of chapter 4. So if you are just jumping on, grab your book, White Hot Truth. I love this book. I think it's so pretty too. And how's everyone doing? Let me know when you're here, when you jump on. I had quite the day yesterday. I left Michigan, the house I was staying at, around 9 a.m. Eastern time. And I got back to Colorado at 4 a.m. Mountain time, aka 6 a.m. Eastern time. So I woke up this morning, my eyes were swollen. I do not do well with no sleep, and I do not do well with that much travel. So today's been a little bit of a struggle bus for me, but I am still really excited to chat with you guys about White Hot Truth and give you all my energy. So as you're jumping on, just say hello. How's everyone doing? What did you guys think of chapter 3 and 4? I'd love to get your feedback as well. So let's open up and let's start on chapter 3 right away here. So chapter 3 begins on page 37, okay? And the title of chapter 3 is Truthfully Seeking, How Wisdom Happens, hint, paradoxically. So her writing is so poetic. I don't know if you guys feel that way too, but I feel like everything's very poetic. And in the beginning of this chapter, she talks about asking more questions, okay? If there's no questioning, there's no growth. And I love that. So how can we challenge ourselves to start to ask more questions? And I love too that I wrote here in my notes as I was reading, questioning your teachers is not a betrayal of them, right? Asking questions to your teachers doesn't mean that you are betraying them or that you maybe don't believe them, but you're trying to find your own truth, right? So who's done this? Who has actually questioned their own teachers, right? I know I have, and I've read books like Danielle's and like some of the other two books we read in book club from Amy and from Jessica, and there were things that I questioned in those books too because I'm trying to find my own truth, right? So have you questioned your teachers, and was it hard for you to ask questions? Did you feel like you were betraying them, or did you feel confident in seeking your truth by asking questions, okay? So let me know, who has questioned your teachers before? And do you ask questions? Can you make it a habit of asking questions and starting to just start to create your own belief system, your own opinion, instead of just taking what maybe is written on social media or written in a book to be 100% truth, right? So I just love this encouragement of seeking our own truth and asking questions and just asking away. It kind of reminds me of if you have a little brother or little sister or kids, and that constant why, when they're 2 or 3 years old, it's they're trying to find out about the world, and there's this beautiful innocence to that is they ask why for everything, right? Does anyone give me a like or raise your hand in the comments and let me know if you can relate to that? Eat your applesauce, why? You have to go pee in a toilet, why? So there's a little bit of a return to that, I think, for us is start to ask more questions and question things that are presented to you, right? I wrote down here, page 42, people have to heal themselves. I love that, right? So she writes, I believed in destiny, now I'm into free will. I used to think I could heal someone with my love. Now I know it takes a lot more than love. Most of the time, people have to heal themselves. So this is my mantra, is that we are, all capable of being our own healers and empowering our own inner healers and using that inner healer within all of us to heal ourselves. And yes, sometimes we need to seek outside of ourselves for guidance or for knowledge or to ask questions, right? Or to have that really diverse support team that she talks about. But that most of the time, all of the time, I think it comes back to then how are you going to use those tools to then heal yourself? Because you're the one who makes all these decisions, right? So I love that she brought that up in chapter 3 here, page 42. People have to heal themselves, and that just really struck home with me. I'd love to hear if that struck home with any of you. She also talks about changing your beliefs, right? It takes courage to change your beliefs. You maybe were raised a certain way or thought you believed one thing, and maybe you stood behind it really strongly. Maybe it was a way of eating, right? Like maybe you were like a hardcore dedicated vegan and now you eat paleo, right? It takes courage to change that, right? Because we are so maybe habitual about it, or maybe we have been really outspoken about it and why we eat that way, just using that as one example. And so it takes some courage to kind of to change that. So I'd love to hear from you as well. When have you made an exception to your own rules? And maybe I use this as an example because that's me, right? So I was vegetarian for 6 years, and then I decided that I was going to reintroduce chicken into my diet. And, it was like, people were, I thought you were vegetarian. And it was like, I was, and I decided to change, and I'm allowed to change. And we as humans are constantly changing and evolving. And I decided that that wasn't the best diet for me anymore, or nutritional plan. So I decided to reintroduce chicken, and now it worked out well, right? So I made exceptions to my own rules there. I also do this in my business a lot. So sorry guys, my phone's gonna die. I'm gonna go grab my charger and keep talking to you. I do this in my business a lot, where when I started my own business, I felt like there was this rule that I had to be going and working all of the time as an entrepreneur, as someone who runs her own business, or else I wasn't tough, or I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't going to be able to keep up with all the other health coaches and lifestyle coaches out there, right? And so then I started to break my own rule, and instead of going all the freaking time, I decided that I was gonna rest, and especially with my autoimmune disease, right? And so I decided that I was just gonna rest, and I was gonna stop holding myself to such freaking high standards, and through that, what I had originally seen as weakness turned into a wonderful, rejuvenating part of my business and my lifestyle, where it was like, if I let myself rest, then I was able to show up so much more and be more present and be more creative and have better, more creative ideas and be innovative about the way that I run my business. So I kind of threw that rule out the window, that belief out the window, that I had to be working all the time and it had to be hard, and changed the belief to be that it can be easy. It can be freaking easy, right? And that is, number one, powerful for my health, right? That I let myself rest, but also has actually helped my business, right? Like less is more. So when have you broken your own rules, or when have you made an exception to your rule, okay? Let me know. And then I wrote in my notes, page 43, quote, I love, and I underlined it here. You guys can see. It's such a beautiful book. I was hesitant to start underlining things, and I was like, no, I want to be able to come back to them, and I want to find them later, because there's a lot of little bits of gems and knowledge drops, or truth bombs here, right? So on page 43, she writes, somehow we got the idea that being whole is about being perfectly consistent. I'd rather we be perfectly honest. I love that. I love that so much. I'm just going to read it again. Somehow we got the idea that being whole is about being perfectly consistent. I'd rather we be perfectly honest, right? There's something to consistency, right? I have my consistent morning routine and everything, but I'm also honest about it, right? Where I reevaluate it every once in a while, and we'll say okay, are these routines, these habits still the ones that are best for me right now, or do I want to change, right? And being honest with myself about what's really working and what feels like a to-do, which she talked a little bit about in chapter 1, right? Taking inventory of your self-care regimen. Okay, so I love to, she talks a little bit about like your truth, and that truth is never black and white. And it just kind of brought me back to this label of like how we eat, right? So vegan or paleo or vegetarian or autoimmune paleo or low histamine or low oxalate or low FODMAP, right? And I just decided that I have thrown out any label for what I eat. Like, there is no label that I fit under that is exactly how I eat, right? I just eat the way I want to eat and that is most healing for my body. So do you guys feel that way? Do you feel that you fit under a label of the way that you eat? Do you identify with that? Or are you someone who just eats in a way that is very specific and unique, that bio-individuality that is custom to you in your body? How are you eating now? And maybe, would you like to change it? Would you like to eat in a way that is more your own way, right? Because if I tried to like sit here and I could tell you guys what I eat, right? But it would be like sort of autoimmune paleo, but with like modifications, because I've done the reintroductions. It's like I'm not a vegetarian, but I also don't eat a ton of animal products, right? So it's just me. It's just the way that works best for my body. And it's liberating to throw away that label and just say, this is me. This is how I'm going to show up for my body. This is how I am going to be my own healer, by not adhering to these labels and making my own truth, right? So coming back to a little bit of spirituality, but I talked about last week, I talked about how we could replace the word spiritual in a lot of Danielle's teaching with the word healing in relation to autoimmune disease, right? So what is a spiritual or healing concept that you used to believe in, okay? What is something that you used to believe in and maybe you have changed and evolved? And I always come back to the quote that change is our only constant. Like, we as human beings are constantly evolving, right? So what is something that you used to believe in, a spiritual or healing concept that you no longer believe in? And why? What shifted for you? What made you change? What was maybe the aha moment? Or what was maybe you learned from somebody else, you heard someone speak, or you read a book, or you saw a quote on Facebook, right? Like, how and what made you shift? And that's a little bit of the vegetarianism for me. It was like, that was a concept that I believed in fully. And then I realized that if I wanted to be the healthiest version of myself, that wasn't the best diet for me, right? So it was a eating, healing, and a spiritual concept, right? With just like animal rights and fair treatment of animals. And so I decided that I wanted to change that, right? And that there's no resentment about it either, too. It was like, I did that at the time because I thought it was best for me, and then I changed my mind. And that's okay, right? I'm just going to open up the Facebook group so I can see your comments better. Okay, so chapter 4, which I told you in the beginning, I freaking love this chapter, and I love the video. So I've been posting these videos that go along with each of the chapters in the Facebook group each week. And so there was a short video on chapter 4 and chapter 3 from this week, and this is all about healing instincts, mixing our own medicine. And she has in parentheses here, it's all an experiment, right? We're like constantly learning and trying to tailor things to our own body, and it is a little bit of a journey. I know some people don't like that term. They don't like the word or term journey, right? But I think it is very much a journey and an evolution of our physical body, but as well as our energy and soul body, that we are constantly learning and evolving. So my first question for you guys from chapter 4 here is, what does your support or healing team look like? And I believe she asks this question, she talks about your spiritual team, right? And so I'm just going to reframe that a little bit and ask, what does your support or healing team look like? Who are the people that you surround yourself with to help lift you up and to help you stay accountable. Or, she talks about her therapy a lot, talk therapy, psychotherapy. So Danielle has her psychotherapist, but then she talks a lot about like her energy healers and her super woos and her, bio healers, I think she called them. And she talks about Western medicine and allopathic medicine and alternative medicine and holistic medicine. And she mentions functional medicine. I like peed my pants. I was like, yes, this is someone who is not necessarily in the autoimmune community, right? And that's not her primary teaching, but functional medicine makes it into her book. And I was like, yes. So what is your spiritual healing or support team look like for your autoimmune healing? Okay. I know personally that I have worked with a wide range of people, right? And some of them I've kept around and others I haven't, because, and I think she uses an example about this too, where it was like, there was a talk therapist that she went to that she didn't feel like that person liked her. And so they're like, that connection wasn't there, and she just broke it and decided to move on, right? So what does your support team look like? And should it be more complex? Like, this made me look at it and be like, well, I've got these like 4 or 5 people, but do I need more? Do I need less? If you have one doctor that you work with, maybe you need to expand and experiment and ask questions and seek more truth and different, ways of healing, right? So I've done some psychotherapy in the past, and like that didn't click very much for me, because it felt like a complaining fest. Like, I felt worse when I was leaving, but I also see the immense benefit in it for some people, right? Not putting that down by any means, but for me, it didn't really liberate me. It didn't make me feel free. It made me feel heavier. So that was something that I cut out of my healing practice, right? Whereas I've worked with numerous psychics, clairvoyants, energy healers. I've gone to go see Reiki practitioners and women who have balanced my chakras and done crystal healing, and I've done the float tank, right? And so those things felt really good to me. They felt aligned for me, right? And I also align with functional medicine, functional nutritionists, right? So that's part of my healing team, my support team as well. So what does your support team look like, and would you want to make any changes? Does it feel right? Does it feel like you have your circle and this is like a sacred circle that you feel supported in? Or do you feel like there are missing pieces and missing parts? Maybe you want to work with a health coach. Maybe you want to work with me. I'd love to work with you if we're a good fit, right? And how can you bring in more people that make you feel like you are in this sacred circle of support? Sammy says, I don't have anyone, but I feel like I really need someone. I'm not sure where to look. Great, Sammy. So you can use, and this isn't a book about like healing autoimmune disease, right? But we're making it a little bit about that. And she gives some examples here, right? So she talks about some of the type of practitioners that she's worked with on a more like of a self-help level. But I would encourage you to just consider, okay, these are my options. I can go and schedule an appointment with a naturopath. I can schedule an appointment with a functional medicine doctor or a functional nutritionist, or a Western medicine, allopathic MD, maybe a chiropractor or acupuncturist or herbalist, or someone like me who works with like on the energy plane and health coaching. Maybe you need a dietitian, right? Maybe you want to work with a psychic or a medium. Maybe you want to work with, what did I miss? A Reiki practitioner, right? There's so many. So like write down all those options and then go through and circle the ones that like you feel called to. Which of those people, and maybe you're writing down like a broad term like a functional medicine doctor, right? So then you do a little research too, and you're like, okay, I found Dr. Jones, right? And you add that person to your list as like a potential, and you try to figure out like, do I feel aligned with this person, and is this person going to add to my healing process, right? Or is it going to cause more stress, right? So go through that, circle, maybe you start with one, because if there's no one right now, right, you start with one and you add 2 or 3 people. And it doesn't mean that you have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars, right? It might mean that you see like an energy healer once a month, right? And that could be $50 to $100 a month for that, right? functional medicine can be it can be a pretty big investment, but it also depends on where you are in your healing. Do you need that support? Are you going to hold your health and your wellness to that high of a value? I think absolutely yes. Like, we all need to hold ourselves and our health and know to high, what's the word? What's the word? Expectations, right? But, again, I didn't get home till 4 a.m. last night from the airport. But that we want people that are going to make us feel supported and be like comforting, right? And encouraging, but at the same time, be a coach or a doctor or a healer, any type of practitioner that is also going to help motivate us to get out of some of the slumps and get out of the limiting beliefs and call us out on our shit sometimes, right? So think about the way you want to be coached and then start to match that and align that with who you want your sport team to be, okay? And let me know if you come up with anything. So looking at that support or healing team, like, what does it look like? Should it be more complex? Are you perfectly okay with what it looks like now? Have you over thought it, or maybe you can simplify, right? I also love how she talks about sometimes she's not in therapy, but one of her friends is ultimately always in therapy, right? And so the quote is, when one of us goes into therapy, we all go into therapy. And I love that because I can relate to that, especially coming back from just being with like 10 girls in one house this weekend. It's like we all have been doing our own work in different ways, and then we come together and we have like, you know, these like little sisterhood chats, and it's like we all bring what we've learned, what we're going through, the tools that are working for us. Like, I talked about essential oils a lot this weekend because not all the girls use them, and I'm like, well, you can use it for this, and you can use it for this, and you can use it for this, right? And that word of mouth and that kind of transfer of knowledge keeps going, right? And so when one of us is in therapy, we're all in therapy, and you can start to spread that. And I love that when I work with people, that then maybe they tell their mom about the tools that I've taught them, or they share it with their best friend, or they share it with their sister or their husband or whoever, right? And that knowledge gets passed on, and that there's this vibrational effect of the transformation, and it's not just the client I work with, it then starts to become amplified as well, which I love. Sammy, yes, I feel like I need someone for emotional health. I do have a naturopath and chiropractor. I was trying to figure out what the right word was there. Chiropractor. Yeah, that's great, Sammy. So you have some people in your circle, right? But like, maybe you need that person for the emotional health. Maybe that's the part of the missing link for you. And I think a lot of us don't prioritize that part, that piece of emotional, spiritual energy work, and we don't put it at the top of the list. And maybe it shouldn't be at first. If you have debilitating cramps, like, you're going to address the cramps first, right? But then there's oftentimes going to be something underlying that. So maybe you go and the cramps are 20% better, but you need the emotional work, spiritual work, or energy work to then get you another 20% further, and in conjunction you can get 100% better, right? So there's this looking at it at a very holistic perspective. Marit, am I saying your name correctly, Marit? Can I just say that I'm so grateful to have found this group. I have just received the book, so I have a lot to catch up on. It's also almost 1 in the night here in Norway, but I wanted to say that I appreciate this so much, even though I'm unable to participate right now. Well, we appreciate you, and thanks for joining us so late. Go to sleep. I started this conversation talking about how sleep was so important to me, and I didn't get enough last night, and it just like throws my whole body off. So I hope you get some good sleep and come back and listen to the recording. Okay. So, chapter 4, just a little bit more here. This is a question that came up as I was reading, and I just wanted to ask all of you, what is your relationship to your negative emotions? I'm really curious what all of us think about that. What is your relationship to the heavy emotions, the negative, the unhealthy emotions, right? And she uses that word unhealthy. I don't know that any emotions are unhealthy unless they become stuck, right? So like anger isn't necessarily unhealthy, but if you are constantly in a state of anger, that's very unhealthy, right? That's going to be bad for your physical body and your life. So what is your relationship to those negative emotions? Do you feel guilty when you get upset? Do you avoid your negative emotions? Do you bury them? Do you let them surface and then move through them? Are you someone who's comfortable doing that? What is your relationship to your negative emotions? And do you consider them, do you think of them as unhealthy? And I think the difference that I see is, yes, like something like anger or fear or pain can be unhealthy in the long term, but that in that moment it's just human, right? So what is your relationship to your negative emotions? As you guys are writing about that, I'm just going to keep rolling. As you comment, I'll come back to them. So she has a little section in here, which I love. If you guys know me pretty well and are in my other groups, in the big autoimmune tribe group, you know I'm pretty super woo. So she writes on page 53, like, what super woo is to her. Super woos tend to be incredibly curious and inclusive because they have had to weave together their own brand of spirituality. And I read that and I was like, yes, that is me. I personally don't subscribe to any food label, but not any spiritual label either. And I just underlined the sentence, weave together their own brand of spirituality. I feel like that's what I've done, is woven together my own brand of spirituality and what that means to me. So I loved this little section on super woo because I felt like she was talking to me directly. So does anyone else feel like they fit into that? You can give a heart or a thumbs up or just comment with a smiley face. Do you feel like you fit into that super woo category? And then she talks too about biohealers, right? And the term alternative healing or alternative medicine, which I've talked about in some of my live streams before, but it's funny and ironic, right? And I'm just going to read this from page 54. She writes, I've come to understand alternative healing to mean when the mainstream profit-centric medical establishment fails you, you will seek out healing techniques that have been working for thousands of years as an alternative. Like, there's humor in that, right? She also writes that she's not anti-allopathic or anti-pharma, right? And we don't have to be. You don't have to hate Western medicine if you are into healing, alternative or holistic healing, right? But I think that there's so much truth in this one sentence, which is that, like, instead of subscribing to the way Western medicine operates, which again can be very helpful and saves lots of lives, but why don't we start with the healing techniques that have been working for thousands of years, right? And I mean, it's because of big pharma, right? And the way that our health insurance and medical system is, at least in the United States, right, is set up. Now I know there's people listening from Norway, so let us know what it's like there, right? And I know a lot of Canadians tune in too, so let us know what you guys think about that. But I thought it was wonderful that she addressed that alternative healing is not so alternative. That's really just going back to the roots. It's looking at our body as a whole picture and not just an elbow that you bumped or something, right? It's not just looking at your stomach if you have a stomach ache, right? There's so much more. We're so complex as human beings. And I think that then it's important to find that sacred circle, that your healing or support team that understands that believes in a similar way and similar beliefs that you do, so that you guys can be on the same page and that you can look at all aspects of yourself, right? Mind, body, spirit. Okay. Last couple questions here. What are you trying to heal right now? What is your main concern? What are you trying to heal right now? What is your priority? What's most pressing for you in your life? And then as you consider what you're trying to heal, what approach or approaches are you taking? Okay, so I have had my number one priority for a while now is my skin. Skin is our largest organ. We don't always think about that, right? But my skin is a very fragile and sensitive alarm system to what's happening inside of my body. Does anyone else feel that way? My skin reacts before I get a stomach ache, right? If I ate something that maybe has created inflammation in my body, I won't necessarily get a stomach ache because I've done a lot of gut healing, but I will get a zip between my foreheads, right? So it's like a very sensitive alarm system to me. So I say that my priority is my skin, but really my skin is this knowledgeable sound system of what's happening inside. So I've been using that as some face mapping, right, to try to figure out where there's actual blockages in my internal body, and trying to then heal from the inside out. And so I have done a lot of nutritional changes then to approach the skin issues, whether it's rashes or hives or dry skin or acne, right? So looking at what's triggering that from the inside to then fix it from the outside. So for the most recent thing I've done as far as food is cut out sugar, all added sugar, not fruit sugar. But it's been incredible for me. Catching up on comments. Sammy, I tend to suppress my grievances, which I know isn't good. I guess I don't want to feel like a pain. It comes from my childhood for sure. My mother would get angry a lot, so I kept a lot inside. She was a terrible communicator also. Yes. So, Sammy, it's so important for you to recognize that, right? And so you've come to acknowledge and be mindful of the fact that you are suppressing grievances, right? Whether that's sadness or pain, or sometimes anger's in there as well, or resentment, or again, just this deep, deep sadness. And so how do we dig in deeper to that layer and try to figure out where did this root from? How can we rewrite the story so that you aren't angry or sad or feeling like a pain to anybody, because you're not, right? And especially if you grew up in a household where communication was something that was challenging, and you weren't communicated well to, or weren't taught how to communicate effectively, how can we shift that as well? And number one, build you up and empower you to know that you have infinite potential, right, to be a freaking awesome communicator, but that you maybe have but that has been part of the puzzle piece in, some of the physical symptoms that you're experiencing, right? So anger, actually, as an example, it usually surfaces on the skin. So I don't know if you have any skin issues like I do, but anger can be it's this literal bubbling up of the skin, right? Or someone getting underneath your skin. So oftentimes on an emotional level, we feel anger, and on a physical level, sometimes that appears as a skin issue. Alex, I'm just starting to notice that. Yeah, I don't know exactly which piece you were talking about, but I think that we can start to become more mindful and start to look at our bodies in a way that is more holistic, right? And we start with the symptoms because that's our body's message. It's the alarm system. It's saying something's off, right? And so we can use that physical symptom to then dig way deeper into the root cause of why. Why do you get bloated after you eat, right? And that's actually a beautiful indication or signal from the body to know where to start to heal, right? It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be this really empowering piece of knowledge to then address the layers. And sometimes there's a lot of layers. So you change the food that and helps alleviate the bloating, but then there's more underneath that. And that's why I believe in going beyond the physical, beyond the nutritional, beyond the, pharmaceutical way of healing things and looking deeper into the body as a whole system and as an energy system. Alex, sorry, skin issues, starting to notice that, skin issues. Yeah, so you can look too, and like, there's different skin mapping images that I've seen but sometimes it'll at least give you like a little bit more specific. So like, for example, if you're breaking out like along your cheekbone versus your chin versus your forehead, those could all mean different things. And so you can kind of use that as like a little bit of a basis, right? That's used a lot in Chinese medicine to then try to uncover what's going on a deeper layer for face stuff, right? And Sammy says, I have psoriasis, which is so interesting, right, Sammy? That if you do feel like you have a lot that you have buried, then it's like this literal, like, hiding under the skin, layer under the skin, right? Like, the skin is your barrier to the world, all for everyone, and it's like that there's something under the surface that you are keeping covered up, but that is trying to, like, erupt or come out, and that's a lot of times anger. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. That's it. Chapter 3 and 4. We'll read and discuss chapter 5 and 6 next Sunday, which I'm excited for. And I'm reading this along with you guys. I don't know, the first 2 books that we chose, I had already read, so I just kind of skimmed them as we were reading. This is a brand new book, so I'm reading it like 100% with you guys this time, which is also really fun. So I haven't read chapters 5 and 6 yet, so I will this week, and we'll discuss them on Sunday. And I just wanted to throw an offer out to all of you in book club, which is that I just started offering what are called healing sessions. They combine, I kind of have a multifaceted approach to the way, as you've probably figured out by now, the way that I approach autoimmune disease, both personally and with my clients. And so these healing sessions incorporate several things that I'm best at and that have helped me the most. And so that includes things like essential oils and crystals and energy healing and chakra balancing and intuitive card reading into a 1-hour session that really investigates like where are the actual blockages in your body and what are they on a deeper, both emotional and physical level. And so there are hour sessions. You can choose to buy set of chakra stones with the cost of your session or not if you already have chakra stones. And right now I'm just running a promo until the end of July, so you just have to book your session by schedule your session by the end of July, so it's in the books, but it doesn't have to be until the end of August. If you're looking and saying, I can't fit it in by the end of July, no problem, just schedule it by then. And the promo code is JULYLOVE, and I'll drop the link in the comments. It's $10 off a healing session, your first healing session with me. Super interested in working with any of you that want to maybe add to that sacred circle that is your healing team. This is something that you can do once a week, every other week, or once a month, or even like 4 times a year, quarterly, with me to just be able to look at your body in a different way and like take a different perspective, right? Sometimes we need that just different approach, especially if what you're doing right now isn't working. Why not try something else, right? So code is JULYLOVE. I'll pop that in the comments. $10 off, autoimmunetribe.com/healing sessions, and I'll drop that in the comments too. And then I'll see you guys next Sunday. Love you all. Bye.